What is up, everyone? Talon here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new rifle system from PTS, the ZEV Elite Series AEG, their battery-powered system. Now, full disclosure before we go any further, yes, I am dressed like a PTS rep. No, I don't have any history with them whatsoever with their company. I love their accessories. They make the best accessories. And so I was visiting a friend of the channel, Paladin Airsoft, and he was like, hey, I've got this new PTS rifle that I just got from them. Do you want to make a review video? And I'm like, sure. So first sponsor goes out to Paladin Airsoft. You can find links to him in the description below. He was the one that gave me the rifle on loan that we're going to review today. Second biggest shout out today is going to mckydex.com. I reached out to him. He was able to give me the space for us to complete this review video. So huge thanks to him. Without both of those gentlemen, none of this would ever be complete without them. So you will find Paladin Airsoft as well as MC Kydex links down in the description below. Please check them out. Please let them know that I sent you if there's anything that you want to pick up from them. So that out of the way, we're going to get into the actual review of the rifle system itself. Now, I've spent no time kind of previewing the rifle. I've not seen anything really about it on social media. I've not previewed it at SHOT Show, anything like that. I just got it in its box, opened it up, and did a bunch of testing here in our little space. And so because this is my first time actually shooting it, you're actually going to see the performance in real time. You're going to see my reaction in real time to the actual performance test. So that being said, I'm in the shade. It's very bright and sunny overhead. So let's just get into it. We got to get it done.
Oh. And then okay. Also, at a 14.5 with an LVOA, a little weird, I'm not gonna lie.
Fun fact, IPSC A-zone dimensions is 5.9 inches by 11 inches. Those of you that didn't know that, now you know. Another fun fact is a standard license plate is actually not too far off from those exact dimensions. These are actually 6 by 12 inches in dimensions. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to Sharpie just A-zones on all of my targets. And that's going to be kind of the reference point of where I think impacts should sit at these distances. And of course, things can go tighter or they can go wider. And that's why we have reviews. So I'm gonna spend some time sharpening, but that's the dimension.
I'm out.
So really, before anything else, we need to cover a couple of things about the rifle specifically. I had brought up the fact that it is an AEG. AEG is an acronym for automatic electric gun, so it actually takes a battery source that you can actually find in the buffer tube of the rifle. It's a relatively small, compact space, so you are restricted to lithium style of batteries, which you can pick up in most airsoft stores and retail spaces and online if you visit anywhere to pick this rifle up in particular. Now there's gonna be a couple of clips where I have a couple of extra accessories that I have in my collection that I've added, like the PTS Unity high-rise LVOA mount, as well as the short vertical grip. I also had a maul as well as a zoom camera on here. So those are accessories that will not come with the rifle. What will come with the rifle is going to be one of the PTS magazines, and it's going to be the EPM style. So it's the 150 rounders. It is the Gen 2. So it is still utilizing that concave follower system and high spring tension system, but it's not their most recently released Gen 3 type of magazine, which I have right here. The difference is going to be external textures, some changes in moldings, as well as changes in the base plates. So just forewarning, if you're looking for the latest and greatest from PTS, the Gen 3s will not be coming in the box. The Gen 2 is what will be coming in the box. You will also find that you will have a PTS marketing slip, a little advertisement that says follow us on our social media. There's no manual that is included, right? First off the bat, I am not a huge fan of that, especially when there's a couple of key features of this rifle that makes it unique compared to other standard AEGs that are on the market. First and foremost, the most prominent unique feature is going to be the adjustable trigger system. On the very back side of the trigger, you're going to find a small little Allen slot for you to adjust the length of pull. You can make it shorter or you can make it longer. Directly out of the box, it is going to be on the longer setting, and I go over in depth how I still find that this is acceptable. You can still shoot and shoot fast with the out of the box trigger pull length. And if you need to shorten it, I'm not saying that you're a bad player, but you're definitely one of the types of players that needs to get better. Some of the other systems that don't really make it totally unique, but something that still needs to be covered is how to load your battery. If someone were to open up the back of the stock, which there are many cases, having worked at an airsoft store previously, where customers don't understand how to get the stock off of their buffer tube. This needs to be in some type of instruction manual system. On top of the fact that if you are smart enough to identify how to remove the stock, there is a buffer tube cap that sits over this end right here. So you have to be knowledgeable enough to unscrew it, be smart enough to know that there are wires underneath there, and that you just need to remove it. I think that the buffer tube cap is a little bit silly, especially with some of the batteries that I was limited to utilizing, since it is just a buffer tube, that some of the wires were still hanging out. So I get the type of setup that they have with this stock system. It's very sleek, it's very minimal, it matches what the real ZEV rifle is going to be emulating, but it's not something that I necessarily agree with as an airsofter. On top of the fact that people need to know how to adjust their hop up, how to set their hop up, what they're looking for, which again, I go over in this video, as well as how to get access to that. Other than that small little rant, you know, I gave it a good, bad, a good sandwich. I talked about how great the rifle is and how much I love PTS, gave it the bad of things that need to be included, and we're gonna follow it up with some good as well. Some good things is that it is an all metal build, excluding some of the DuPont polymer accessories, such as the stock and the pistol grip and any type of accessory that you would add on there that would be a part of that PTS lineup, such as the shorty vert grip that I had thrown on there. Everything else here is going to be metal in construction, which is what you want. So one of the things that PTS is saying about this rifle system is that it does shoot around 350 feet per second. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a chronograph in my collection of tools to utilize and confirm that. So we're just gonna take their word for it. As well as some of the testing that we do shooting it, it seems pretty evident that it's gonna be around that 350 to 330 velocity check, but still performs really well. Spoiler alert. The inner barrel is stated as a 6.03 inner barrel, so that is technically a tight bore inner barrel. I do know that you could potentially upgrade this to go with an even tighter bore inner barrel. I believe at the velocity that it is shooting that it performs very, very, very well. And the hop up and bucking are actually much better compared to some other out of the box setups that I have seen from other manufacturers. So we're gonna give it good remarks in that regard. This system is utilizing a MOSFET system. I am not aware as to what type of MOSFET it is utilizing. When you do plug a battery into it, it does beep, indicating that there is in fact a MOSFET system. So you are safe to run the 7.4 and 11.1 volt lithium polymer or lithium ion. There is a little asterisk on PTS's website claiming not to go over 20 Cs of energy output. I ran this on a 20 and a 30 C battery, and it performed well. I cannot make any type of claim or statement about long enduring performance with that higher C battery. My shit's, sorry about that. Trying to just cover up my camera so it doesn't overheat and die on me because I told you it was hot. PTS is saying on their website that it does feature a 30K high torque motor. We'll test it out and we'll see how well it works. Other than that, everything seems relatively straightforward. It's a well-built rifle. Let's put it to the test.
So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to actually be quickly reviewing kind of the accuracy and consistency we saw with the PTS ZEV rifle, the 14.5-inch barrel. So these are the first two targets that I was impacting. When I was coming up from my normal position, this would be the first one that I would engage. So we only had one BB really come off to the side. Otherwise, we stayed within the A zone here. Now, transitioning from 1 to 2, there's a lot more that went into a Bravo or a Charlie zone, but still a concentration here in the center of that Alpha. Overall, not too bad there at a distance of, I would probably say 25 feet. 22 feet. We'll actually do 22 feet to the target from where I was standing. So not quite to the bumper of the vehicle, but from where I was standing, 22 feet. So 22 feet, not great, right? I would expect myself to be a little bit better, but not bad. Let's go check target number 3. Target 3, we're seeing the collection here in the A zone, a bunch drifted off into the Bravo. So this one was a little weird because I would either be approaching, looking over the optic or through the optic. And so that's probably where we got a little bit of inconsistencies. But here, I would probably say the mass collection here is around the upper left-hand corner. So I was oddly enough drifting from center to top left. Not great, but when I'm making that big of a swing, I think that's kind of just where I naturally drift, and knowing where you naturally drift is half the battle. Now this looks not great. I know that this is where I was suffering the most. So we've got here a bug. Get out of there. I said get out of there. Here. So we got a BB stuck. So in total, 4 impacts on the Alpha zone right there, the A zone. Everything else was way around there. We got a couple that collected around it. I would say the majority collected above the A zone there at 75 feet. So at 75 feet, we're getting a little bit of rise. And there's a little bit of science behind that. I'm gonna take you to a cardboard target in order to show you why that would be.
So within airsoft specifically, there's this mechanical system referred to as hop-up. Hop-up is what affects the backspin of the BB, and that's what creates the general lift of the BB as it passes through the air. So what we typically see with normal projectiles that are coming out of a rifled cylinder is you have a couple of things happening. You have the force of forward momentum as well as centrifugal spin of a rifled barrel. Both of those things in tandem are what is going to create a linear flight path for a normally fired projectile from a firearm. Airsoft is utilizing a round projectile, and the inner barrels that fire this projectile are going to be smooth bore, kind of similar to a shotgun, a smooth bore shotgun at that. However, we have in physics what is referred to as the Magnus effect. That's an A. So the hop-up is a small mechanical system that in the airsoft BB's chamber is a patch of rubber that's going to sit on the top surface of our round projectile. So as our projectile gets fired, there's friction along the top of the projectile, and that creates a backspin. Now within this backspin, it's going to create enough of a lift as it passes through the air that it's going to give it a little bit more distance compared to just a straight straight flight path, and then falls off sooner rather than later with the Magnus effect. Now there are some pros and there are some cons to this effect. Number one is the fact that we have to keep careful of that piece of rubber that sits inside of our hop-up unit. It can't get too wet or it can't get too dry and break. We have to be extra careful with it. Secondly, when it comes to anything that's going to be a accuracy type of rifle system that we want to build, there's a little bit of an indiscrepancy as far as where we typically would see our optic jutting away from our rifle and where the BB is actually going to be passing. So when I'm looking through my optic, looking at the crosshairs here, so this may be where I see the BB start to enter into my scope's field of view. I'll see it rise to maybe about here, and then it'll fall and land on its desired target right about in the center. But that center point is going to change dependent on your distance. So if we've got our BB flight path, we got a little bit of a lift, and then it falls off. So if this here might be our 25 feet, our 50 feet, and then our 75 feet, at those different distances, we have different points where the BB may potentially be impacting our target. So like what we saw with target number 5, where it was actually sitting super low, but our natural drift of our BB flight path was going higher than what we would typically anticipate in our crosshairs. So there's a little bit of weird science and a lot of inconsistencies with what we're typically seeing through the optic as shooters. So just want to point that out. All right, welcome now to the overview portion of the video. And what this entails is going to be a tip to butt overview of the rifle itself. However, we're going to do things a little bit different. We're actually going to undress some of the accessories that I have on here and address them as we get to them. So first and foremost, at the very end here, underneath our PTS mock suppressor is our mandatory orange tip. This has to come onto all of the US imported rifles by law. It is mandatory, it just has to get done. There is, however, a set screw on the very underside on the 6 o'clock position of the orange tip. You could potentially get access to it, remove it from your orange tip. I don't believe there's any type of glue that is holding this orange tip into place. So theoretically, you could maybe twist this right off. However, I cannot stress this enough, do not use boiling water. If you don't have any type of method to remove the orange tip here, pick yourself up one of the PTS mock suppressors. It will clamp on just like so. It's not going to slide around. It does have a little bit of rotation and does not have any type of weird flex to it, or enough flex that it's going to impact the BB as it's moving through the barrel, or out of the barrel, I should say. But that is one of the options. This is the short version. They do make one a little bit longer. There's really no good reason to go with a longer one on the 14.5 inch. If you were to go with maybe the 10 inch, you could get the extended mock suppressor if you wanted to have a elongated inner barrel on that 10 inch or even on the shorter version. On the 14.5, I believe that this is enough barrel length to get good performance out of, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. We do have a full M-LOK handguard here. It is highly cut away, so it is extremely lightweight on the very front end of the rifle system here. We have Picatinny running along the entire top length on the 12 o'clock position, and we only have a mountable M-LOK on the majority of the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions. You will notice on the very top here, on the 45s, on the left and right of the 12 o'clock position, there are actually some M-LOK sized slots. I have never truly been of the understanding why you would have a 45-degree offset when it comes to something that is right next to your top Picatinny option. It kind of makes sense if you were to do it on the bottom 45 degree. That way you have enough flat surface on the 3 and 6 o'clock position in order to mount whatever you want on that 45. But by all means, if you can get anything to fit, go ahead and fit it right there. You have a generous amount of length of that M-LOK wherever it does sit on that 3, 6, and 9 o'clock position. I have on the left-hand side of the rifle system one of the KWA textured plates that I still had in one of my boxes. Sometimes I utilize these on rifles in order to indicate in dark spaces where my grip should be on the rifle. That way, if I'm coming from a low up and want to get a C-clamp on there, by habit, I generally know where the end of my rifle or where my grip should be, but sometimes I just want to have a little bit of texture to give me a good indication as to where I need to grab onto. Also, I do have a short vertical grip, also from PTS. This is a Picatinny mounted one, so you will need to get M-LOK slots to go onto the bottom rail section if you were to go with a short grip like this. I will note that the gas block that we have about halfway along our barrel system does extend downwards quite a substantial amount. So if you're going to try to mount anything such as a rail section right underneath that gas block, forget about it, it's not going to mount. That's typically the space where I'd like to have my vert grip, but I was not able to mount it right there due to the lack of space on the inside of that rail section. The barrel itself, the outer barrel, is very, very cool. It has that golden bronze type of coloration, so it stands out, it's very evident, it's flashy without being like a gross red or a blue or a green of some sort that might be a Speedsoft associated color. So if we work our way backwards from the handguard, we do have our receiver. We have an upper and a lower receiver, as is traditional with ARs. On the upper receiver, I have mounted a Unity Tactical LVOA high-rise optic. This allows me a little bit of clearance away from the stock here. That is going to accommodate for any type of face mask I might be wearing. It also gives me some good relief in the action of airsoft. That is a much closer engagement, so you move around a lot more. You're not exactly welded to your stock. What's cool about this is that they do have a 45-degree offset for any type of micro red dot. I don't have a good option in my collection to demonstrate, but the benefit is you have, even on the lowest power of this one, being in aim sports, is a 2x. Remember how I said airsoft is a close quarters engagement? So you could offset and you could utilize your micro red dot in order to take out the bad guys, as it were. Clear rooms efficiently, whatever have you. As long as you know generally where your point of aim should be, you generally shouldn't have a problem. However, it's still really, really nice to have. Built into the upper receiver coming from the factory is going to be your charging handle. Pull your charging handle back, it does lock backwards, and it does give you access to the rotary hop-up window. This allows adjustment to the pressure to the top of the BB, which gives you the backspin, which gives you distance and consistency at greater distances. Because it does lock back, you can hit your imitation bolt release, and that will slide that window closed. So charge it backwards again, retains open, hits the bolt release, and we are good to go. Working our way down to the lower receiver, we do have the very nice ZEV licensing. One of the things that did stand out to me that I think probably generally goes unnoticed is going to be the textures along the very front of the magwell right here. I imagine that this is designed to be some type of texturing for airsofters or even the real steel guys with the real ZEV rifle system to act as that texturing, like I talked about up here, in order to have a solid grip on the rifle system as they grab around the mag guard, or the magwell, excuse me. I personally never really grab around the magwell, so I cannot confirm how efficient that texturing works. I just know that it's there. I just noticed that it was there is all. Staying on the left-hand side of the rifle here, we do have our imitation bolt release like I had brought up earlier, as well as your selector switch. Now this is a right-handed man's rifle, so our selector switch being safe, semi, and full auto is going to be selectable only on the left-hand side and not on the right-hand side. On the right-hand side, where our pointer finger would be, is going to be our magazine release. And as we can see demonstrated here, does not give us a full release just yet. We will need to wear our magazines in a little bit more. Now this is going to be the Gen 3 or the current generation of the EPM series. The EPM ones are generally a little bit stiffer. This is advertised as being EPM 1 compatible. So we should be able to ideally put our EPM ones on the inside of here, and it should still work and do everything it needs to. I'll need to do a little bit of testing. I'll give you a clip here. So you're telling me that I can go blap, 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 and up, but the thinner magazine does not come out. We have here a trigger. It is claimed to be a flat face type of trigger. If you can see here, there is still a slight curvature to the trigger itself, but it's not nearly as curved compared to a traditional AR type of trigger. But by no means is it a speed soft flat type of trigger. This trigger does have an adjustable pull to it. By no means is this going to be kind of the optical type of trigger where we can identify from where the resting position is to pulled where that initialized contact is. We have to, from fully resting, pull that trigger all the way backwards. There's a little bit of a mush, and this is weird because it's not exactly a micro switch, but it's also not like a proper contact switch either. I haven't opened up this rifle at all or something similar to identify what this trigger is, but I have kind of a good idea what it could be. But it has a little bit of mush, but the reset overall is much better compared to if it was a traditional contact type of trigger. And I found that the reset overall is typically faster. What I like about this type of trigger and the system that they have going in this is that you cannot spam the trigger. As is traditional with some older school contact trigger systems, is you could sit on there and you could feel where the initial contact is, and you could spam and you could get a very fast semi-automatic. However, if your gearbox or your motor wasn't designed to be a high torque, high speed on semi-automatic, you're gonna lock that gearbox up and it's going to potentially break on you, right? So that's a downside of contacts. This system, I have quick tested that out, and even the action of spamming the trigger like so, like a fucking idiot, it's not going to lock up and seize the gearbox from a fully charged battery. I suspect that if you have a partially drained battery or even a fully dead battery, you will start to get enough juice to move the gearbox, but not completely cycle the gearbox. So put on a fresh battery, put it into full auto, kickstart the entire system, run it on full auto for a couple of bursts, flip it to semi, and then complete the cycle out back to zero with a freshly charged battery, by the way. That has been my solution, my fix on some of those jammed, locked up batteries. or gearboxes. The grip itself is their compact version. So the overall profile of the grip is much thinner compared to maybe a traditional type of grip. And I really like the fact that it has the beaver tail here as well. For my type of hand and how I like to grip the rifle system is it allows me to get the pad of my hand to sit a little bit lower on the rifle itself, and thus I feel that my trigger finger is a little bit more in line with my entire hand overall. I feel that with some of the older grips that didn't have that beaver tail, the pad or the insert of my hand here was sitting much higher, and I was having to rotate my wrist upward at a relatively extreme angle. I am exaggerating a little bit in order to get my finger down and squeeze the trigger, especially quickly, maybe in an indoors or active environment. So I do like these new grips overall. They also got rid of that point on the very front there, so it's easier overall to move around and manipulate without having that dent in the front of the motor grip right there. So working our way backwards from the grip, we do have our enhanced polymer stock version C, the compact version. I like and I don't like the stock on this rifle setup for a couple of reasons, but to get you warmed up to it, it is a 6-position stock. It is very thin, it is very sleek, it is easy for transportation, it's very easy on the shoulders in any type of tactical loadout that you have. It is easiest to get on and off compared to previous designs that PTS has had. They do have their quick release tabs for your sling. They also have a slot here for a more traditional sling of setup. Overall, it is a very solid stock. However, I do not like stocks on these types of rifles in particular, especially when the designation for the battery compartment space is the actual buffer tube itself. Now, they've done a smart thing where they've removed any type of MOSFET from inside the buffer tube. That gives us ample amount of room for any type of battery. However, I'm still a little stressed out as far as what type of battery to get. The only batteries that I have in my collection are going to be 7.4 sticks that will fit inside of the buffer tubes. All of my other rifles are the enhanced polymer stocks with the dual tubes because I typically run Titan Power lithium ions or like a triple cell 11.1 volt LiPo batteries. So this type of setup, I would need to get specific batteries if I wanted to have the most amount of juice and the most amount of power for this rifle setup. So I'm gonna grab a 7.4 from my vehicle and I'll plug that in right here. So these are gonna be the 2 LiPos that I currently have on me. This is going to be the 7.4 LiPo that I've been currently test shooting for the entire duration, and then this is going to be the 11.1, which I most ideally wanted to utilize with this rifle setup. However, due to the limited battery compartment space, which again, it's a pro and it's a con. The pro is that it is super small, it is super sleek, it's easy to move around and utilize the rifle in tight, confined spaces. It is a curse because I can only use these 7.4s that I have in my collection. I should also note that there was a cap here. You do need to remove that in order to fit your battery and your wiring system nicely. So what I do is I like to have my stock 1 or 2 positions out. I'm gonna go 2 positions right here. And overall, not too bad of a setup. I have no batteries, but that is the current reaction of the 7.4 after utilizing it for an entire day of shooting. So it's still got some juice in it. So as you can see here, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna spam that trigger. So the gun itself is not overcycling. It's not trying to match my tempo of trigger pulls, no matter how aggressively I try to pull it. So the easiest thing to do, even with this partially drained battery, is to meet what the rifle is going to actually give me. So in the case of shooting tempo, Overall, not too bad. Now I'm going to take the stock all the way off, and I'm going to replace the 7.4 with a dangling 11.1. Also, let's hear this on full auto. Now we're going to do an 11.1. You hear that beep? So I can only fit 2 cells in here. Number 3 is just going to dangle onto the side here. So let's hear this response. I can go a little bit faster on semi-automatic. So no matter what type of battery I utilize, it's only going to give me shots that it can keep up with, which I think is cool. Again, it's a system that is preventing the shooter, myself, from potentially breaking the internals. So it's a built-in safety mechanism. But listen to the rate of fire on 11.1. Now, once again, this is a pro and a con. I am currently utilizing an 11.1 that is a 30C rating. On PTS's website, it is indicated that you should only be utilizing batteries that are going to be a max of a 15C output. And what that is going to be the energy output from the battery into the rifle system. It's a whole built-in safety feature thing. Now, we talked about the trigger. It's got a little bit of a mush, and you have to be cognizant as to where that reset is. I also want to bring to point the motor itself. PTS's website is declaring that this is a high torque motor. It's a 30K high torque motor. Now, it could be a 30K motor, which is going to be a little bit different compared to a 30K high torque motor. A high torque motor is going to give you a better overall immediate burst of rotation on, on a semi-automatic pull. So when I'm sitting here doing semi-automatic and I want to have that faster trigger reset in order to get the entire gun to spin faster on semi-automatic specifically, you really want to have a really good high torque motor. High torque motor is going to give you that snap way more immediately. This type of motor, I believe, is going to be a very good all-purpose type of motor, a general 30K motor. We saw how fast it is on an 11.1, and we generally got good response on it with semi-automatic. So overall, it's a decent balance. And that is going to complete the tip to butt portion of this video. And you're probably looking at your screen going, when is this dude gonna get to the actual shooting portion? And that is actually happening right now. So what's happening here, and I'm gonna demonstrate from this side here, is I'm trying to figure out where the wall and where the trigger reset is. And sometimes I'm not giving it enough of a reset. So here I'm demonstrating where the full extent of the wall is. So pulling, and that's where the shot is. Now, I could potentially reset it all the way back forward, give it that full length of travel back forward, get my finger lift off, and then re-engage it. But we already technically know, because it is a switch and not a trigger contact system, that we know that the very end of the wall is going to be where that shot is going to occur. So all we need to go is hit the wall and then come away from the wall just enough to reset that switch. So from here, I'm going to move my finger out of the way. I'm going to give it, I think, 2 mils. And then there we've got a reset, a shot. So as far as an out-of-the-box performing rifle, it's actually one of the shorter resets that I've seen in a while. And it's pretty cool that it's something you could potentially shorten that length of travel to the very wall if you needed a very fast trigger pull. However, this length of travel already is super, super short. I don't feel like you need, as a player, to shorten that length of travel. You could already pull that once and then feel where that 2 millimeter reset is. and just be really freaking good about feeling where that set is. That's just my 2 cents, man. Now, you heard it a couple times where I wasn't giving it enough. So as I'm sitting here, I do that pull, and I'm giving the trigger a little bit of wiggle, but I'm not wiggling it enough forward to give that reset. I'm actually giving it only about 1 mil of reset and not the 2 that it actually needs. Because once you actually give it just that little bit, it fires absolutely freaking snappy. It's also starting to rain. Let's get things covered up. So from this point onward, we're going to be doing 4 total targets. 2 at 75 feet, 1 at 100 feet, and 1 at 150 feet. The reason we're doing 75 and 100 feet is because I'm intentionally going to be aiming at a little bit shorter, smaller profile of targets compared to the 150 feet, which is going to be a little bit larger, a little bit chunkier of a profile of a player that we'll be utilizing just as general testing. And I did measure from the actual bumper to our targets. I'm going to be sitting on the inside of my vehicle here, stabilized, not locked into place, but stabilized so I can get the best shot possible at the different BB weights. So we know exactly how the rifle is going to perform at the different distances with the different BB weights. So here we have our first set of targets here at 75 feet, just as a reference as far as where I'm going to be standing. This here is our 100 feet target. And then way out here is going to be 150 feet. Now, I'm not guesstimating. I did actually measure it with a tape measure. So this is bona fide 100% scientific 150 feet. We're doing science, baby. And I do recognize that this lens in particular at this setup is not super advantageous. I am going to be utilizing my zoom camera on the rifle, and that way we should be able to get some punch-in effects and be able to get a good example as to where that flight path is. So we should be all set. Okay. Here we go. Testing with 2 5s, 75 feet. Taking 5 shots. Well, that's 1 hit. So let's go to the right-hand side. That's 5 shots right there. Transitioning to 100 feet. I'm not super impressed with the lack of consistency. There's 5 shots right there. Going out to 150. Okay, I'm gonna have to give it a lot more arch. Five shots, did not do super well. All right, we're gonna move on to 2 8s. Okay, I think that's good. All right, beginning test. Just over. Just under. Nick. All right, that was 5 total shots. I'm gonna move on. Over. All right, readjust. Oh, I don't know what that was. transitioning to 100 feet. Over, readjust. Oh, wow. I don't know what that was either. That was crazy. I guess we'll go to 150 feet. Okay, I'm aiming center. I'm holding my reticle in the center. Okay, I'll adjust 2 mil dots. Oh wait, no, it'd be 4. I'm gonna adjust 4 down. There we go. So that's 2. Low. Hit. Oh, wait, 1, 2, 3. Here we go with 3, 2. Over. Smacked it. Okay, here we go. Okay, that 5th one was a little odd. 100 feet. Over. To the right. I think that was 5. It was 5 or 6. I very easily lose count. 150 feet. Off. That hit my GoPro. I think number 5 went over. But I hit my GoPro. All right, we are down to our last BB weight, 0.40. Let's get down to it. Now I shot a little bit off to the side, so I'm pretty confident that I've found where the hop needs to be. There we go. Moving to the right. Over, readjust. I know that was 6. Well, 6. We'll count it as a 5 though. That's our 5. Okay, here we go to 150 feet. Okay. All 5 on target at 150 feet. Yes. Let's go check it out. So here's what we have as far as total impact. So we had started with the 0.25s, and I don't think I told you, but this is a 17 by 20 inch target. So at 150 feet, a 17 by 20 target with 0.25s being a circle, you know, 2 impacts at a higher distance. And there was a lot of inconsistencies. I think one went high, one went low. but we had 2 total impacts with .25s. Not too bad at 150 feet. I will say if we probably had a tighter 4 inner barrel, we would have had better results overall. But the purpose of this video is to test out of the box performance. So the .28s are the triangles, if I remember correctly. The triangles, we had 1 impact high and 2 impact low, giving us a range of change in that vertical orientation, but that shift in vertical orientation is tightened compared to the .25s. So our .28s, our groupings came in a little bit tighter and we had 3 total impacts. Our .32s, we had 3 impacts. So those are the square ones right here. And I believe we had a very close number 4 just fly off to the right-hand side here. So it would have been really close if we had gotten 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, but alas. And number 5, and our final BB weight .40s, we had all 5 impacts here. Now, overall, our vertical shift has tightened up substantially. From our .25s, which went way off, our .28s got a little bit tighter. Our 3.2s, 1, 2, and 3, got a little bit tighter as well. And our .40s, all 5 impacted the target here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is our vertical shift, which is here to here. Now, granted, some of this could be shooter error, and I'm willing to admit that, but for 6.5, 7 inches of vertical shift, that is really, really good at 150 feet. And again, if we had a Type 4 inner barrel, we could have totally gotten a even tighter grouping. Now, so this here is our aluminum can. Now I have an impact on the left-hand side here. I cannot recall immediately if this was the 2.5 or 2.8 BB, but I do know that our 3.2 impact was down here, and our 4.0, I believe, was just center mass here and caved the lower half in. I think we had also dinged right up here just a little bit, just kind of a little bit of a bounce. But once that 4.0 BB impact hit here, it had a lot more swing on it compared to the lower BB weight or even the 3.2. So you're gonna get a lot more impact at those heavier BB weights. So first and foremost, welcome to the very end of the video. I know it's very long, very drawn out. I tried to put a lot of information out there that was very prevalent. I tried to approach this from a standpoint of if I was an audience member, if I was looking for a new product and I wanted information about it, what would I want to see? And hopefully I was able to give you guys as much information and more that you might have been looking for. Now, and we're not 100% done just yet. So as a very quick review of what I saw with the shooting portion specifically, of the 15 total shots on paper targets with every BB weight, not including the can whatsoever, looking at just the BBs on cardboard targets, out of 15 total shots, the .25s ended up 10 out of 15 total hits. The 2.8s and the 3.2s actually performed worse than what I was anticipating. The 2.8s came in at 9 out of 15 shots, and the 3.2s came 8 out of 15 shots. The 3.2s were weird. I don't know if it was potentially on my end. I'm willing to take the blame on it just because I'm fiddling and messing with the hop up only a little bit between each of the testings. So I'm trying to get it close. I could have spent a little bit more time, but when I'm sitting out there for an hour, just doing the 4 different BB weights and trying to get as close as possible, I'd like to get get on to the next part of the filming. The 2.8s had the weirdest reaction when getting shot out of the ZEV rifle. It had the most amount of flyaways and the most amount of inconsistencies across all 4 weights. The 2.5s only had a single very obvious flyaway. The only other changes would have been, I believe, the vertical shift, and that could have been changes as far as the amount of pressure on the bucking, as well as that lighter weight going through the inner barrel. So there's more vertical change and effect compared to as we went up in weight. The two weights had very, very strange left and right variances. I don't know why. The 3.2s were, I thought, better compared to the 2.8s. They had a straighter flight path, but they also had a more vertical disruption, and sometimes would completely go over the target, or in the case of 100 feet would curve just a little bit to the left and go into that A zone target, which is where I was not intending. I was trying to hit on the right hand side of the cardboard in that empty space so I could visibly track where those impacts would land a little bit easier. The .40s, I don't think by anyone's surprise, not even my own, the .40s performed the best. This is what we're anticipating with heavier weights, is that as you go up in BB weight, it's gonna have more mass, more momentum, and a straighter flight path overall. So the 4.0s got a 12 out of 15 impacts. They had a couple of inconsistencies at 100 feet. And the two misses were in that A zone instead of on the right hand side where I was intentionally aiming, or initially aiming. And then at 150 feet, no problem whatsoever. So, and this is weird because 4.0s, even though they perform the best, it's not always the most obvious weight to go with. .40s, because they have the most amount of mass, are also the most expensive type of BB. Looking at just these results, I would probably still be utilizing .25s or .32s. We're just going to skip 2.8s all entirely, just because that was the had the most amount of inconsistencies. Even though the .32 had the lowest scoring weight, the reason why I would still go with a 3.2 is that it will still give us a relatively straight flight path. You can easily gauge a general area that the BBs could get within. By no means a 14.5-inch barrel is designed to be stupid accurate. We have to think of the base of this rifle. This is a 14.5-inch barreled rifle. By no means is it designed to be a sniper or DMR type of platform. You're still going to get some inconsistencies, and the max range is about 160 feet. We could arch these and go 170 feet, but you're not going crazy distances with this 14.5 barrel. So you don't need crazy weights in order to get those heavier weights to register with players. 3.2s are still going to be substantial. You're going to get some inconsistencies, but I would rather have a general space of inconsistency rather than the .28s. I felt that with the 14.5-inch, you could still play at an outdoor field or even indoors and still have a lot of control, be able to move within a close quarters environment confidently. And then once you hit a window while you are indoors, you could have some confidence at that consistency of BB flight path. If you go the distance of 150 feet, you're going to lose that linear flight path. You're going to have those vertical inconsistencies, but it's way better than left to right inconsistencies. Some things that I do want to discuss very quickly is the fact that I did notice while going through and editing this, I didn't bring up the fact that the ZEV rifle did not have any type of forward sling mounting options. So I talked about how at the stock of the rifle, there was your quick detach sling point. At the handguard of the rifle, where you would put that second point for a 2-point sling, there is nothing for you to quick attach a sling point. So you would need to get something that would attach via an M-lock or a top Picatinny mount if you wanted to have that 2-point stock position. It could begin to busy up your entire handguard space, but at 14.5 inches, you've got ample amount of rail space in order to have a lot of room to throw a lot of things. So overall thoughts and considerations in testing with this rifle system. For a rifle that is relatively newer from PTS that is priced at around $380, I think that this is a solid performing rifle system. The only things that I would ultimately change and modify, number one, we just talked about it, as I would probably swap that inner barrel system out. I personally don't like changing out hop-up units. I would probably change out the bucking, but for the most amount of consistency and reliability from the nozzle of the gearbox to the hop-up unit, I would keep this the OG, the factory hop-up unit. I know a lot of people like to put their maxes in guns. I personally don't really like to do that, but I would change the bucking, the inner barrel. I would also change the motor out for something that's going to be an immediate high torque. I generally like to go with the ASG 40Ks. I'll give it a little bit of a bump. That's just personally where I like to sit. Those are just ones that I will pick up very often and will put in my rifle systems. The other thing I would change out is going to be that stock system. I would personally change it out to one of the full size stacks. It does widen it out ever so slightly, but as you start to throw more accessories onto your rifle, that will also build out the width and volume of the rifle loadout itself. So it's not going to take anything away. Overall, I would take this as a buy for $380, and I would do just those couple of things: motor, inner barrel, bucking, and stock. And I would be absolutely confident with this system. So if you guys are interested in picking this up for yourself, go ahead and follow the link to paladinairsoft.com in order to pick one of these rifles up for yourself. They're also available in a 10.5 and a 11-inch. So the ZEV rifles are available in a 10.5 and a 7.5 inch rifle system. If any of those weights would potentially interest you, go ahead and go to paladinairsoft.com to pick one of these rifles up. Again, if you want something to add to your entire loadout, go to mccodex.com, the other supporter and sponsor of this video. I would not be able to make this video without the two of them. Please go and show them some love for me. If you have any further questions about this rifle, I don't know what you possibly could come up with more questions about this rifle. I think I went into pretty good depth with it. Go ahead and put them down into the comment section down below. I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my abilities, but we're all done here. So you guys, share this video with someone if you think that they would enjoy it as well, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.